Hello, darlings, and welcome to 2024 and news and views with the EV Café. 30 minutes, yes, just 30, of what's happening in sustainable transport with expert analysis from the whole EV Café crew. Brought to you this week in partnership with the AA, not just the biggest, but the best, rather like myself. Today's opinions Today's opinions on a stick are Paul, Sarah, Johnny and Sam. Let's give it up for the gang. Yes, because we're going to... Sam, are you alive, darling?
Yes, just about. Thank you.
Marvellous, dear. Marvellous. Now, put your hellos in the chat for us. We want to know who you are, where you're from, and your company. Let's broadcast, let's network, and let's do this thing. Grab a cuppa and plug in to what's been happening in zero-emission transport this week. Coming up, the much-heralded ZEV mandate becomes law. Stand by, Paul. We'll be talking about vans in a minute. Europcar adds Maxus to the commercial fleet. Fleets are switching to electric SUVs as a van alternative. Hold the front page. Research shows that the government's motorway services high-power charger target was not met by the end of 2023. We'll go live to Sam Clark for an update on that little baby. And the world's largest electricity interconnector goes live. Sounds dull, but actually isn't. So, are we all well? Everybody happy? Shall I get stuck in? Paul, are you happy?
Yeah, I mean, couldn't be happy. Well, I probably could be happier, but
You did just use some
happy,
clappy hands, but I don't know why. I'm not sure what you were saying with your hands. That's good.
And JB, lovely to have you. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm also happy. It's just I've got this sickness bug that's going around at the minute. So
Oh no!
Oh no.
Oh,
Johnny
bless your
sick,
heart.
no berry.
I made it though. I made it.
And Sarah, how's Sam?
He's over there. Ask him. I don't know. But I'm very
Is he
well.
just
How many
annoying?
times you've written 2023 when you really meant to write 2024 so far
I
this week?
haven't yet.
Because we don't use pens.
Sam, do you ever write with a pen?
He's got a quill and
Love
he's
you
on
so
mute.
Excellent. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Sam has a member of staff to do all that sort of thing for him.
I know.
Right, anyway,
He uses a pen.
the ZEV
He uses a
mandate.
pen.
The zero-emission vehicle mandate has officially become law, requiring all new cars and vans to be zero-emission by 2035. The ZEV mandate was passed into law by the House of Commons last month and will require 80% of new cars and 70% of new vans sold in Great Britain to be zero-emission by 2030, increasing to 100% by 2035. MPs voted and passed the ZEV mandate into law with 381 ayes and 37 noes. The ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Eyes have it.
It came into force on Wednesday this week. For 2024, that means that 22% of all new UK car sales from each qualifying brand must be zero emission, with the percentage gradually rising each year. For 2024, OEMs will be subject to a £15,000 penalty per non-compliant car. Paul, quick update on vans. Where are we with vans?
Well, vans is 10%. A measly 10% of all vans will be electric this year, so we hope. And the fine is £9,000 in the first year and £18,000 in the second year if you miss the targets. But there is all sorts of collaboration and credits and adjustments and balancing acts, and it's like a circus.
And what bothers me about this whole scheme is exactly what you touch on there. Surely, if manufacturers don't achieve their target, they can just go and buy credits from Tesla. So Tesla must be rubbing their hands together. It almost doesn't matter if they don't sell cars. They just need to sell more than their 22%. And they've got credits then that they can sell on commercially. It's a bit bonkers, isn't it?
Been doing it for years. That's why they're the most valuable manufacturer in the world.
Now, that's very, very interesting. We've got more van news. Oh, good grief. It's taking over.
Sam's away to check. Sam's just going, are they the most valuable manufacturer in the world? I'm not sure that they are.
No, they 100% are. I don't think that's the driving factor of their value. I think it's their sales of vehicles as opposed to their selling of carbon. But nevertheless, it's a massive contributor.
Why, thank you.
Now, interestingly, BYD have just outsold Tesla worldwide in the last month. BYD, the Chinese manufacturer. So, whilst Tesla flexing their muscles, BYD are coming for them.
Second biggest in the world.
Indeed,
BYD.
they're absolutely phenomenal. Now then, responding... Sorry, Sam, did you want to say something, sweetie?
No, I was just thinking that at some point we need to sort of work out geographical exposure to EVs as well as... So, the Chinese, obviously, the vast majority of BYDs are sold in China, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just it's localized. And I just wonder whether it distorts the numbers somewhat that Tesla sell vehicles all over the world, whereas BYD, whilst trying to, almost entirely sell in China. And so it's not necessarily apples and pears, is it?
Which is
Of
the
course,
biggest
they're-
EV market, isn't it? The domestic market.
Yeah. And they're expanding, Johnny. So I suspect we'll see BYD becoming more available. I know Arnold Clark have done a deal to be a dealership for them in the UK. Will you have them for leasing purposes?
We certainly will, yeah.
So the market for the UK is looking as though it might explode. Interesting. Should we say hello to a few people?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go on then. First in today, with nothing else to do with her life, is Kirsty Robinson from Stuart Science. Bless you, Kirsty. Michael Barton from Bristol. Dan Martin. Hello. Ross Morgan. Hugh Maguire. Do you know what? He's lovely. He always rocks up. Richard Markey. Ian Thompson. Gemma Lovett. Barbados. It's in the house.
Barbados.
I know. Amy Phillips. Peter Widdowson. Hello, darling. Now then, you put CNG mice. What's mice? Interested by that. Do you live in the skirting board? Claire Leclerc, Richard Hill. Now, Richard Hill's a pimer. What's a pimer? Is that like a little rodenty thing?
Or a frusser.
Well, indeed, a frusser.
Go on.
Laura Huswick Wilkes, Andrew Walker, James Dewhurst. They used to be a butcher's years ago. Do you remember Dewhurst, the butchers? Yeah. Uh-huh. Now then, the mice is back. Catherine Bryant. Hello, Catherine. Now she, in brackets, has right in brackets.
Always right.
So exactly. Sarah Sloman,
Sam's
always right.
in his name.
That's his middle name. David Bushnell, Toby Hiles. Hello, darling. Ian Thompson, Ron Godfrey. Hello, Ron. How are you, mate? Hope you're well. Tony Clayton, Michael McLeod from the mighty Swarco. Congratulations on your promotion, dear chap. Craig Stevenson, Alan Castle from Webfleet, from whom we may be hearing more in the near future. Can't tell you, though. It's a secret. Matthew Ling, he's down there in Suffolk. Look, Dev, Chakravarti, Catherine Bryant, Steve Hamer. Steve, hope you're well. Hope your recovery's going well. Ian Thompson, we've mentioned you before. Pam Hanlon, hello, darling. Karen Moole. Now, a moole, that's a muscle, isn't it? Oh, goodness. Karen Muscle. There we go. Carl Elliott. Lisa Martin from Charge Place, Scotland. Hello. Martin Sweeney from MHA. Goodness gracious.
We did some news now.
Yeah.
People have no work to do.
Colin Hemsey, Ian Thomas, Ben McDonald, Martin Schaeferbold, lots.
Can I just say?
The names listed out in like Star Wars theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be nice. We should do that.
People do love a name check. Just saying. I'm just giving the people what they
It would
want.
take half an hour.
Oh, stop moaning, Sam Clark, always right. Responding to the growing prevalence of ULEZ and clean air zones even around the UK, Europe Car Vans and Trucks has partnered with Maxus. Now, this is an interesting story. The addition of Deliver 9 Euro 6 DV1E diesel models to the Europe car fleet means businesses can eliminate the risk of fines and charges for entering low emission zones without having to make a long-term commitment to fleet acquisition. Keith Shorter, an absolute mountain of a man, Vans and Trucks Director at Eurocar, explained, Maxus shares our vision for helping customers make lower carbon choices, selecting models that work for their businesses both financially and logistically. This is already critical for organisations that operate in clean air and ultra-low emission zones. By adding the Maxus Deliver 9 diesel model to the Europe car commercial vehicle fleet, we are providing an easy access solution that both reduces emissions and addresses the cost of clean air zones and ultra-low emission zones. Now then, I saw this story and immediately went, oh, diesel, can't do that story. And then went, oh, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Euro 6, Maxus, commitment to full electric. That's got to be a good thing. Sarah, at a sort of strategic
I
level.
knew you were going to come to me.
Just because
Yeah, go,
Paul's
I've got it.
champing at the bit there. Just at a strategic level, we aren't saying that diesel across the piece is bad. Euro 6 is much cleaner than an old diesel engine used to be. And if that's the step that people want to take, isn't that okay as a part of getting to 2035?
The fact is, there is now time, isn't there? That 2035 shift did say people would continue to go ahead to where they need to be, but you still do have time. You've got at least one more fleet cycle in a lot of these vans. So I'm not surprised to see it. I think it's very supportive, very commercially savvy, a deal to be done like that. I was listening yesterday to you and Paul interview Indiver Singh from EV Age, which is an eHGV truck company. And he said the top 3 things you need to do. Number 1, as a fleet operator, is make money. Number 2 is look after your drivers and your people. And number 3 is do what you can for the environment. And I think that was a fairly fair review of a business plan that has to survive with all of these changes coming forward. Also, 2 big brands, right? So Maxus has then got a customer in their pocket. They can then move them over to an electric van after they've enjoyed the latest diesel van. So I get it. I see it. I wish that there was another way, but we do not have the vehicles that everyone needs at the moment. So yeah, hopefully it's a short-term thing.
And we have to live in the real world. Johnny, Sam, you guys work in the leasing field. I'm just keeping Paul waiting, really. Johnny, you will see people coming to you now. Are they predominantly inquiring about EV and going back to traditional ICE, or are they committed fully to EV, or is there a right old mix still?
I'd say there's a right old mix, to be honest. I think if it's possible, they will commit to EV. They have their own procedures to make that work, and we can support with that, and we want to support with that. However, there's a lot of people that welcome this, and a lot of people that won't welcome this news, I suppose. But businesses, as Sarah quite rightly said, they do want to address environmental concerns, but bottom line is the most important thing. Not paying for ULEZ charges without impacting their operational needs is the most important thing. And again, it probably meets the short-term demand of not wanting to commit until they are sure on an electric vehicle that meets their needs of their operation. But it does make me think that you're operating in a ULEZ zone. I do know that they've got a Maxus electric version, so it does make me think a little bit. Sam, what do you think?
Oh, thanks, Johnny. I echo what you said, and I think Sass's points that she reiterated of Evandir is valid, right? Number 1, businesses need to make money. And commercial viability, as I've waxed lyrical about years and years, is the most important thing. And that's what people have to focus on: commercial viability of any enterprise, any business. So that's fundamentally. But yeah, the appetite is still there for EVs. Even I think the other thing, which is still a bit of a hangover of Rishi Sunak's comments of last year and the deferment 2035, whilst it doesn't make a material difference, we know that it does too, because the rhetoric and the sentiment within the public domain changes, and people think they've got more time, and it doesn't help, right? So we've got to sort of get over those things in the next couple of years and make people realize what the real world looks like.
Absolutely. And it's the real world that we're most interested in. And thank you, Tim Morris, Head of Marketing for Europcar, for being on the call today, because he lives in the real world and he's been part of this process. Paul, we do live in the real world, and vans are critical to the success of society. We rely on them so much. Are you happy to see Euro 6 coming into the Europcar fleet?
Well, the bottom line is 90% of vans sold this year will be diesel. We talk about the 10% that are electric, but 90% will be diesel. What is great about the deal between Maxus and Europcar here is that every diesel van from Maxus going forward will have a telematic device in, which will give insight to people to know when to change. They've been doing it on the electric vehicles for some time to support that transition, but they're doing it on the diesel vehicles now. And the diesel vehicles will have a device in which will give them the insight that they can change the next cycle. So what they're doing is very clever. They're going to get a lot of insight, a lot of understanding, which they can then pass back to their customers and say, listen, guys, you know what? That 10% of your fleet, we can easily do that. That 15% of your fleet next year, we can easily do that, or 16 actually. But we can move with the times, and that's what we need to be able to do. So it's a positive thing, and Euro 6D is very much cleaner than the Euro 5 counterpart. So it's a good move forward.
Absolutely. Now then, very interesting story that I read this week was around people using electric SUVs rather than vans, which is fascinating. And the reason that they quote in the research from Arval was that there's a greater range on SUVs than there is on electric vans, and they can use them where payload isn't such an issue. So lots of small parcels rather than big chunky stuff. Johnny, are you seeing this coming through in your fleet discussions? He's on mute. We love him.
Mute. He's on mute.
Sorry, I never normally take myself off mute unless I'm coughing my guts up. Interesting question, John. I think nothing is off the table, or at least it shouldn't be that way when it comes to looking at decarbonising the fleet. So I go back to Paul's comment, which is a blank canvas approach, almost. But it does remind me, some years ago, about 5 years ago, I think, although not an SUV, when I was talking to fleets at Renault that required a smaller van, there wasn't anything out in the market. But as we know, the Zoe is quite an attractive option in terms of its price and range and all that. So we reacted and built a Zoe van version, which was widely received. So I do appreciate that most fleets do need the space, payload, range, charge time without compromising any of those. And we're not short on any of the e-SUVs, are we? So it is well an option worth looking at. And I will just say this. I saw an advert for the 7-seater Kia, I think the other day actually, and I was thinking
EV9,
or the Mifa, the Mifa 9. You take the seats down, you have a massive amount of space, a good range, good charging speed. It's almost a van anyway, isn't it? So I do wonder if OEMs will create a van version of their SUVs. I haven't seen one yet. I don't know if you've seen one, Paul.
Well, sort of yes. I suppose the VN5 is basically a taxi that's been converted to a van, and of course, you're right. There are a lot of engineers that can kind of flex between the two. But the motivation for this, I was interested in this article because Arval, the guy from Arval, whose name escapes me, said that the biggest problems are range and payload, and SUVs can really sort that. They can't sort out payload, let me tell you. You stick 400 kilos in the back of one of those and you're going wheelies down the road, mate. So payload is not happening. But it does. I mean, Addison Lee do a lot of courier kind of work. They've just kind of gone back to hybrid because of the public charging situation, or the charging situation in general. It's something that could provide an opportunity, and SUVs have got a lot of space. We sort of don't really want them on the road, particularly because they're sort of big and less efficient than smaller cars. But they could serve a purpose. But I don't think it answers the problem really, and it will be small numbers.
Are we thinking now that maybe it's right vehicle, right place for the right job, and actually the market's deciding this? It's saying, do you know what? For whatever reason, this doesn't work for me. This does. I'm going to do that. That's okay, isn't it?
I think it's seeing need for lead. Like, I feel like back in 2016, got to credit North Somerset Council. It's why they won the awards for what they did with their fleet, right? They spotted that they didn't need to wait for an electric van to do the jobs that the diesel vans were doing, so they elected to use Kia EV Sols. They did have an EMV 200 on their fleet as well. But the point is, they looked at payload and they were like, well, a highways maintenance engineer needs a ladder and a something, but that doesn't need a van for that anymore. So they switched out. So that's why they had one of the largest EV fleets in the UK back in 2016. So hats off to them for that as a start. The second thing I'd say is personal use. People constantly tell me that they can't get an EV because of the stuff they do in their lives, like camping and I just made a point in the chat. It's just my daughter and I wanted an EV van, but instead leased a Tesla, have the seats down almost exclusively, and I use it like a van. So again, use case led my decision making there. But I do think as we see the models come forward, let's think about the AA as well, who converted that hydrogen car into a van by putting the necessary support ports in so that the drivers were safe because of the heavy payload they were taking. So they went for hydrogen over electric because of the heavy stuff. So yeah, I think people just at this point can be really ingenious and obviously reduce the costs on their fleet if they think about different use cases in terms of payload and functionality.
Absolutely.
I suspect if you look at the whole fleet across the UK, there will be tens of thousands of use cases whereby a car could be used instead of an electric van. It's just a case of making sure in whatever capacity that they're secure. There'll be so many. So I think it's definitely.
I forgot about the good one. They had the Meals on Wheels were the first vans to go electric, and they bought a whole ton of second-hand Citroen C0s. So there was like this little army of tiny 60-mile range Citroen C0s going rurally to people's homes to give them Meals on Wheels. Fantastic, leading from the front with ingenuity, and that's all down to the fleet manager. It wasn't the government. It wasn't anyone else. It was one person who said we need to make this happen. It's very cool.
Brilliantly, quite literally an electric dinner tray. One meal in the C0. The government did not hit its target of having 6 or more rapid or ultra-rapid electric vehicle chargers at every motorway service area in England by the end of 2023, according to new research. Sam, you're on standby. Just 46 of 119 motorway services reviewed on ZapMap now have the target number of chargers above 50 kilowatts to serve the UK's growing fleet of battery electric vehicles, which should have exceeded the 1 million milestone by the end of 2023. The number's grown from just 27 at the end of April. Only 18 service areas have no rapid charging above 50 kilowatts. So 18 in England. So I think that's pretty good. But worryingly, 4 have no publicly accessible charging facilities whatsoever. And we're going to name and shame them. Leicester Forest on both sides, east and west of the M1, T-Bay South on the M6, and Barton Park on the A1M. Now, Sam, I'm right in thinking that GridServe have put in 300 rapids over the last year, something like that?
Oh, yeah. As you might expect, I got a fair to say about this one. But yeah, if we've put in last year alone, 43 hubs, 324 bays, and 270 high power chargers, and that's just us alone in 1 year. And we're set to double that this year. So, yeah, I mean, just some clarifications there. This isn't ZapMap information, by the way. This is RAC analysis using ZapMap data from their map.
Indeed.
It isn't ZapMap because actually the stats are a little bit different to what was just displayed. So for a start, thanks government for setting an ambitious target for us and then claiming all the credit when it's good and then deferring it to us to failure when we don't hit it, whilst also deferring things like the petrol and diesel ban at the same time. So they're treating us up for a fall and then pushing us over. But there we are. The other thing to note is that there's 138 MSAs across the British Isles, whereas that number only looks at England because that was the target set by government for the England numbers, which is 119. So actually the number's a bit bigger. It's more like 44% of the motorway service areas across the British Isles have medium to high powered hubs. So the number is actually better than what is being quoted at the moment. And I believe Melanie from ZapMap is going to be publishing some data today, which updates it, which isn't a huge difference, but it is better. The other thing, and this is a bit of an anecdote, which is directly from the GridServe stats, but something that won't be public knowledge yet, is that data runs up to the 21st of December, that last year. Now, that seems reasonable, right? Because, the year's done by that point, except we opened 7 hubs between the 21st and the 1st of January. 7. So in those was it 9 or 10 days, we opened 7 more hubs. Now, there'll be other people that have done the same. And that just goes to show how quickly that information, which is already inaccurate, is obsolete because we put in 7 more hubs since that information has been declared, which means the number is even better now than it was before. So yeah, and the other things just to point out really is that the overall growth in charging infrastructure, 44% growth year on year. We've gone from 800 a month in 2022 to 1,400 a month in new installations. That's an increase of 72%. High power chargers have gone up 112%. Charging hubs have gone up 145%. On-street rollout, although I'm not a fan, has gone up 72%, and that will be even greater when the levy fund starts to kick in later this year and the beginning of next. So there is a ton of positive information, and yet the rhetoric suggests that everybody's failing, and that's really disappointing because We're putting in billions of pounds, raising Ron Godfrey, raising, not making. I just wanted to point that out from the last news when he thought we must be coining it in, which is absolute nonsense, of course, because we are raising and spending billions of pounds to increase the infrastructure. And then we get kicked in the nuts because we didn't hit a target, which we didn't set. But there we are. It is what it is. And overall, I think it's a positive thing that I mean, just roll back. 44% of MSAs are electric now with hubs of 6 chargers or more. Go back a couple of years and imagine what it was like then. It is completely different. And we'll continue to accelerate. So, overall, I think we're doing a pretty good job, industry-wise, I mean.
He's good,
we'll see.
He is good.
But can I ask a question? What can we do about Leicester Forest East? I mean, I am absolutely, along with a number of people in the chat, gobsmacked that a service station, which is very well used and like a very strategic point north to south, why hasn't got any charging? I'm surprised. Sam, you must know why.
Well, I don't know the directories. I don't know which motorist service area company that is either. But what I will point out is please don't point the finger at the motorist service area and go, why haven't you done that? Because it's entirely probable that it has nothing to do with them at all. It's probably a DNO connection, a connection to where the connection is so far away to getting reasonable power that it's millions and millions of pounds and probably a waiting list till 2035 to get the connection that you want in order to deliver the solution that needs to be there. So it's probably one of the examples where there is a market failure that the Rapid Charge Fund or other needs to support in order to get the power where it needs to be. So it's probably almost certainly not a finger wagging at the motorist service area, but actually further down the chain where the energy needs to be sourced from in a commercially viable way.
Absolutely love the comments, Sam. Toby Hiles, mic drop moment from Sam Clark. Boom. And Vern Pollard, 100% agree, Sam Clark. We've come so far. Let's focus on that and double down on 2024. Formula Space in the house. Thank you, Vern. Right, last story, 3
John,
minutes.
did you see my comment? I love it when we
No.
see Sam sellotaping notes to his screen because some thunderous points are about to follow. I did, but you did do a very good job, I must say.
Sellotape. Is that sustainable? I think not. The world's longest land and subsea electricity interconnector, which stretches for 475 miles between the UK and Denmark, started commercial operations last week. National Grid's new Viking Link electricity interconnector became operational on the 29th of December, transporting power between the UK and Denmark. The link has a capacity of 1.4 gigawatts and stretches for 475 miles under land and sea to join Bicker Fen substation in Lincolnshire with Revsing substation in southern Jutland, Denmark. It's a £1.7 billion project and is stunning. What caught my eye was that the National Grid is saying, well, this ensures our energy security. My question was, how? If Denmark decide they're not going to pump their electricity to us, we're no better off. Surely renewables generated in the UK, by the UK, for the UK, is the way to ensure energy security. Have I gone mad? Anybody can answer.
No, definitely not gone mad. I was just going to support John. Agreed. It doesn't give, it's a really curious wording that. It doesn't give energy security. It gives us an agreement that hopefully will be upheld. But I feel like it's a little bit like the diesel Maxus story in a way. This will do for now, whilst hopefully we focus on getting our own renewable energy situation up and running. But we've got a strange appetite in our country for lots of, micro nuclear, which I need to look more into before saying anything about it. But this is purely renewable for coming in. So the longer that happens, that's a great thing in my mind. It's following on from the Norwegian one that happened, 6 or 7 years ago, that has been brilliant. So I'm pleased to see it.
It's great investment. Good to see it. I just get irritated when people say this is about energy security because it can't be. We are no more secure as a result of that. Anybody else? Final comments? Paul, you got anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of positive about this story in the sense that it's giving us access to renewable energy. I'm sure the agreement isn't as fickle as you can turn it on, turn it off. I imagine it to be a pretty robust agreement and will last a good period, like the Norwegian thing. So I think, I'm not sure that Denmark are likely to go to war with anybody. So I think it's pretty secure. Yeah, I think it's a good news story.
Well, with the Queen abdicating in Denmark just this last week or so,
Oh.
and a new royal family, who can say?
Who can say?
Right, anyway, we're done, 10:30. If you've got any clean transport, PR or news stories you'd like us to cover, please send them to us at hello@evcafe.org. Until next Friday, it's goodbye from me and it's goodbye from them. Some great ideas about GridServe and Leicester Forest East, just saying. Until next Friday, it's goodbye from me and it's goodbye from them and Sam's Sellotape. This has been an EV Cafe production brought to you this week in partnership with the AA. Bigger, brighter and better. Other sustainability news services are available, but this is just funner! Sarah, you didn't funner.
Did very loudly.
I didn't see your arms move. Arms.
No.
Funner.
Well,
Thank
Patches.
you. EV Cafe is truly blessed to be partnered with the AA, Plug Me In, Paythrough, Zaptec, Spiri, Hydrock, Interval, Kesha, Dynamon, and McIntyre Hudson. We are the EV Cafe, supporting the transition to zero-emission transport. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend, wherever it takes you. Thanks for joining us. Until next Friday. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Mice. It's literally still there.
Skirting
People
board.
just
I was
love
about
mice.
to